Hello viewers and welcome to another chapter of reading. Before I begin the chapter, I would like to say a big congratulations to my dear friend Alexa, who has graduated today, if she attended the graduation ceremony. If not, a congratulations is still in order. I can't wait to see what prowess you'll do as a forensic scientist, and I just hope that my fingerprints don't end up in your database. I'm so glad I can be myself around you. And another thing, I know it's in a day, but buon compleanno, mia cara sorella. You are very special to me, and I cannot imagine life without you, my soul twin sister. I know life has its ups and downs as usual, but whenever I'm feeling down or whenever I just need a conversation, you're just, well, there to make me feel happy. So I hope you enjoy this day early birthday message, and big congratulations. That said, for everyone else to enjoy, let's get this chapter read, shall we? Chapter 8, Flight of the Fat Lady. In no time at all, Defense Against the Dark Arts had become most people's favorite class. Considering what happened in last week's chapter, it's not hard to figure out why. Only Draco Malfoy and his gang of Slytherins had anything bad to say about Professor Lupin. "Look at the state of his robes," Malfoy would say in a loud whisper as Professor Lupin passed. "He dresses like our old house elf." Nice callback to Dobby. But no one else cared that Professor Lupin's robes were patched and frayed. His next few lessons were just as interesting as the first. After Bogwarts, they studied redcaps, nasty little goblin-like creatures that lurked everywhere there had been bloodshed, in the dungeons of castles and the potholes of deserted battlefields, waiting to bludgeon those who had gotten lost. From redcaps, they moved on to kappas, creepy water dwellers that looked like scaly monkeys with webbed hands itching to strangle unwitting waders in their ponds. Harry only wished he was as happy with some of his other classes. Worst of all was potions. Snape was in a particularly vindictive mood these days, and no one was in any doubt why. The story of the Boggart assuming Snape's shape and the way that Neville had dressed it in his grandmother's clothes had traveled through the school like wildfire. Oh, that would be... If the Daily Prophet had a school version, that would be the headline. Like, wow. Snape didn't seem to find it funny. His eyes flashed menacingly at the very mention of Professor Lupin's name, and he was bullying Neville worse than ever. I'm about up to here with Snape in this book. I really am. Harry was also growing to dread the hours he spent in Professor Trelawney's stifling tower room, deciphering lopsided shapes and symbols, trying to ignore the way Professor Trelawney's enormous eyes filled with tears every time she looked at him. He couldn't like Professor Trelawney, even though she was treated with respect, bordering on reverence, by many of the class. For Barty Patil and Lavender Brown had taken to haunting Professor Trelawney's tower room at lunchtimes, and always returned with annoyingly superior looks on their faces, as though they knew things the others didn't. They had also started using hushed voices whenever they spoke to Harry, as though he were on his deathbed. Nobody really liked care of magical creatures, which after the action-packed first class had become extremely dull. Poor Hagrid. I feel for him in this segment. I really do. Hagrid seemed to have lost his confidence. They were now spending lesson after lesson learning how to look after flobberworms, which had to be some of the most boring creatures in existence. Why would anyone bother looking after them? Said Ron after yet another hour of poking shredded lettuce down the flabberworm's slimy throats. At the start of October, well, I kind of wish we were in October, but at the same time, I'm so glad we're in June. So, make of that what you will. However, Harry had something else to occupy him, something so enjoyable, it more than made up for his unsatisfactory classes. The Quidditch season was approaching, and Oliver Wood, captain of the Gryffindor team, called a meeting one Thursday. Hey, it's Thursday! Evening to discuss tactics for the new season. There were 7 people on the Quidditch team, 3 chasers, whose job was to score the goals by putting the quaffle, a red soccer-sized ball. Take notes, Alexa. You might want to dye your soccer ball red. Is that even possible now that I think about it? Well, just paint it red. if you can't dye it, just paint it. Through one of the 50-foot high hoops at each end of the field, 2 beaters who were equipped with heavy bats to repel the bludgers, 2 heavy black balls that zoomed around trying to attack the players, a keeper who defended the goalposts, and the seeker who had the hardest job of all, that of catching the golden snitch, a tiny winged walnut-sized ball whose capture ended the game and earned the seeker's team an extra 150 points. Oliver Wood was a burly 17-year-old, now in his 7th and final year at Hogwarts. There was a quiet sort of desperation in his voice as he addressed his 6 fellow team members in the chilly locker rooms on the edge of the darkening Quidditch field. This is our last chance, my last chance, to win the Quidditch Cup, he told them, striding up and down in front of them. I'll be leaving at the end of this year. I'll never get a shot at it. Gryffindor hasn't won for 7 years now. Okay, so we've had the worst luck in the world. Injuries, then tournament getting called off last year. Wood swallowed as though the memory still brought a lump to his throat. But we also know we've got the best running team in the school, he said, punching a fist into his other hand. The old man glint back in his eye. We've got 3 superb chasers. Wood pointed at Alicia Spinnet, Angelina Johnson, and Katie Bell. We've got 2 unbeatable beaters. Stop it, Oliver, you're embarrassing us, said Fred and George Weasley together, pretending to blush. And we've got a seeker who has never failed to win us a match, Wood rumbled, glaring at Harry with a kind of furious pride. And me, he added as an afterthought. We think you're very good too, Oliver, said George. Spanking good keeper, said Fred. The point is, Wood went on, resuming his pacing, the Quidditch Cup should have had our name on it these last 2 years. Ever since Harry joined the team, I thought the thing was in the bag. But we haven't got it, and this year's the last chance we'll ever get to see our name on the thing. Wood spoke so dejectedly. God, that's a bit of a tongue twister. That even Fred and George looked sympathetic. Wow. This shows that Fred and George truly do care. Trust me. Oliver, this year's our year, said Fred. Let's do it, Oliver, said Angeline. Definitely, said Harry. Full of determination, the team started training sessions, 3 evenings a week. The weather was getting colder and wetter The night's darker, but no amount of mud. Woohoo! No amount of mud. Woohoo! Wind or rain. No. But that implies there is mud. How dare you dampen my spirits, chapter! Sorry, it needed some humor. Could tarnish Harry's wonderful vision of finally winning the huge silver Quidditch Cup. Harry returned to the Gryffindor common room one evening, after training cold and stiff but pleased with the way practice had gone, to find the room buzzing excitedly. Yeah, I may be a Gryffindor, but that is one room I will not be present in due to my anxiety. Yeah, not really ideal for me. I'd rather be in my dorm room. What happened? He asked Ron and Hermione, who were sitting in two of the best chairs by the fireside and completing some star charts for astronomy. I would love to make a star chart, but I don't know how to make one, sadly. So, any tips? First Hogsmeade weekend, said Ron, pointing at a notice that had appeared on the battered old bulletin board. End of October, Halloween. Excellent, said Fred, who had followed Harry through the Portugal. I need to visit Zongos. I'm nearly out of stink pellets. I'm gonna guess by the name alone that they're pellets that you set on the either throw or set on the ground, and then once someone gets near them, they blast into. When someone steps on them, like a stink bug, there's this. Just the thought. No more stink pellets, please. No stink pellets. Harry threw himself into a chair beside Ron, his high spirits ebbing away. Hermione seemed to read his mind. Harry, I'm sure you'll be able to go next time, she said. They're about to catch Black soon. He's been sighted once already. Black's not fool enough to try anything in Hogsmeade, said Ron. Ask McGonagall if you can go this time, Harry. The next one might not be for ages. Ron, said Hermione. Harry's supposed to stay in school. But he can't be the only third year left behind, said Ron. Ask McGonagall. Go on, Harry. Yeah, I think I will, said Harry, making up his mind. Hermione opened her mouth to argue, but at that moment, Crookshanks slipped lightly onto her lap. A large dead spider was dangling from his mouth. Does he have to eat that in front of us? Said Ron, scowling. Clever Crookshanks. Did you catch that all by yourself? Said Hermione. Ah, yes, as a fellow cat owner, I can definitely confirm I get excited when my huntress kitty Corinne brings home a present on the front porch. In the past I took some videos and pictures. That's just how excited I am. Yeah, most of my family, especially my mom and grandma, would go, okay, I'm out of here, but me, I'm just like, woo, I want pictures! So yes, I know what that's like. Fun times. Crookshanks slowly chewed up the spider, his yellow eyes fixed insolently on Ron. Just keep him over there, that's all, said Ron, irritably, turning back to his star chart. I put Scabbers asleep in my bag. Harry yawned. Okay, I was not expecting a literal visual. I really was not expecting a literal visual. Well, let's resume. He really wanted to go to bed, but he still had his own star chart to complete. He pulled his bag toward him, took out parchment, ink, and quill, and started to work. "You can copy mine if you like," said Ron, labeling his last star with a flourish and shoving the chart toward Harry. Hermione, who disapproved of copying for her webs but didn't say anything. Crookshanks was still staring unblinkingly at Ron, flicking the end of his bushy tail. Then, without warning, he pounced. "Oi!" Ron roared, seizing his bag as Crookshanks sank 4 sets of claws deeply into it and began tearing ferociously. "Get off! Get off!" Ron tried to pull the bag away from Crookshanks, but Crookshanks hung on, spitting and slashing. "Ron, don't hurt him!" squealed Hermione. The whole common room was watching. Ron whirled the bag around, Crookshanks still clinging to it, and Scabbers came flying out of the top. "Catch that cat!" Ron yelled as Crookshanks freed himself from the remnants of the bag, sprang over the table, and chased after the terrified Scabbers. George Weasley made a launch for Crookshanks but missed. Scabbers streaked through the 20 pairs of legs and shot beneath an old chest of drawers. Crookshanks skidded to a halt, crouched low on his bandy legs, and started making furious swipes beneath it with his front paw. I'm just trying to mimic what a cat would do. I hope it worked. Ron and Hermione hurried over. Hermione wrapped Crookshanks around the middle and heaved him away. Ron threw himself onto his stomach and with great difficulty pulled Scabbers out by the tail. "Look at him!" he said furiously to Hermione, dangling Scabbers in front of her. "He's skin and bone! You keep that cat away from him!" "Crookshanks doesn't understand it's wrong," said Hermione, her voice shaking. "All cats chase rats, Ron!" I mean, there is logic in that because cats are carnivores and predatory animals. But not every cat chases a rat. Some might prefer a bull, a rabbit, a squirrel, maybe even a bird. "There's something funny about that animal," said Ron, who was trying to persuade a frantically wriggling Scabbers back into his pocket. "It heard me say that Scabbers was in my bag." "Oh, what rubbish!" said Hermione impatiently. "Crookshanks could smell him, Ron. How else do you think?" "That cat's got it in for Scabbers," said Ron, ignoring the people around him who were starting to giggle. "And Scabbers was here first, and he's ill." Ron marched through the common room and out of sight up the stairs to the boys' dormitories. Ron was still in a bad mood with Hermione the next day. He barely talked to her all through her biology, even though he, Harry, and Hermione were working together on the same pod. "How's Scabbers?" Hermione asked timidly as they stripped fat pink pods from the plants and emptied the shining beans into a wooden pail. "He's hiding at the bottom of my bed, shaking," said Ron angrily, missing the pail and scattering beans all over the greenhouse floor. "Careful, Weasley! Careful!" cried Professor Sprout as the beans burst into bloom before their very eyes. They had Transfiguration next. Harry, who had resolved to ask Professor McGonagall after the lesson whether he could go to Hogsmeade with the rest, joined the line outside the class trying to decide how he was going to argue his case. He was distracted, however, by a disturbance at the front of the line. Lavender Brown seemed to be crying. But Brady had her arm around her and was explaining something to Seamus Finnegan and Dean Thomas, who were looking very serious. "What's the matter, Lavender?" said Hermione anxiously as she, Harry, and Ron went to join the room. "She's got a letter from home this morning," Brady whispered. "It's her rabbit, Pinky. He's been killed by a fox." "Oh," said Hermione. "I'm sorry, Lavender." "I should have known," said Lavender tragically. "You know what day it is? The 16th of October. That thing you dreading that'll happen on the 16th of October. Remember? She was right. She was right." I'm sorry. I know what it's like to lose a pet too, and I really feel for Lavender. I really do. I feel like if I were to jump in this book and they had this scene in the film and jumped in the movie, I would definitely give her a big hug. Because, like I said, I know what it's like to lose a pet, and I would give her a hug and help her be comforted, if that makes sense. What about you guys? The whole class gathered around Lavender now. Seamus shook his head seriously. Hermione hesitated, and then she said, You were dreading being killed by a fox." "Not necessarily by a fox," said Lavender, looking up at Hermione with streaming eyes. "But I was obviously dreading him dying, wasn't I?" "Oh," said Hermione. She paused again, and then, "Just thinking an old rabbit." "No," sobbed Lavender. He was only a baby." Hermione tightened her arm around Lavender's shoulders. "But then why would you dread him dying?" said Hermione. Hermione glared at her. I mean, I would glare at Hermione too. I mean, what if this was Crookshanks? What if Crookshanks was a kitten and he got massacred, for lack of a better term? How would Hermione feel? Would she just be like how she is now, or would she be like Lavender? I mean, you gotta look at it both ways, Hermione. While it is tragic, you should also show empathy to Lavender. And you gotta imagine what it would be like if it were Crookshanks. I mean, you would probably be devastated, right? I know I would be. If it were any of my cats, I'd be upset. I mean, good lord, I love my kitties, you know? Well, look at it logically, said Hermione, turning to the rest of the group. I mean, Pinky didn't even die today, did he? Lavender just got the news today. Lavender wailed loudly. Hermione, I'm sorry, I just wanted to lightly strangle Hermione a little bit in this segment. And all at the same, I want to comfort Lavender. And she can't have been dreading it because it's come as a real shock. Well, yeah! Losing a pet is like... like losing your spine. It's hard to live for a few moments. Okay, maybe spine wasn't the best analogy. Maybe spines weren't the best analogy, but either way you get the concept of what I'm trying to grasp. Once you lose a pet, it comes as both a shock and you go through the 5 stages of grief at your own pace. For Lavender here, I would say it's a mixture of denial, then Crap, what are the other stages of grief? I should have them committed to memory by now. Okay, for Lavender, I would say it's a mixture of denial, then maybe a little bit of bargaining, then grief. Does that sound right? No. I would say her 5 stages of grief would be like the grief itself, like the loss. Then it would be denial, then it'd be a little bit of bargaining somewhere in there. Maybe a little bit of anger mixed in. But either way, losing a pet is like going through all 5 stages of grief without the acceptance just yet, because the acceptance takes a little more time to cope with. If that makes sense. I'm trying to look at this in a little bit of a commentarial, psychological aspect. If that makes sense. You guys can agree with it if you like. But I just know that from what I have experiences with, it's hard to go through. It truly is. So I totally can resonate with Lavender's feelings. Anyway, let's resume, shall we? Don't mind Hermione, Lavender, said Ron loudly. She doesn't think other people's pets matter very much. I don't know what to comment on this. I really don't. Professor McGonagall opened the classroom door at that moment, which was perhaps lucky. Hermione and Ron were looking daggers at each other, and when they got into class, they seated themselves on either side of Harry and didn't talk to each other for the whole class. Harry still hadn't decided what he was going to say to Professor McGonagall when the bell rang at the end of the lesson, but it was she who brought up the subject of Hogsmeade first. "One moment, please," she called as the class made to leave. "As you're all in my house, you should hand Hogsmeade permission forms to me before Halloween. No form, no visiting the village, so don't forget." Neville put up his hand. "Please, Professor, I think I've lost. Your grandmother sent yours to me directly, Longbottom," said Professor McGonagall. "She seemed to think it was safer." "Well, that's all. Really? Ask her now," Ron hissed at Harry. "Oh, but go forward, Harry," said Ron stubbornly. Harry waited for the rest of the class to disappear, then headed nervously to Professor McGonagall's desk. "Yes, Potter?" Harry took a deep breath. "Professor, my aunt and uncle forgot to sign my form," he said. Professor McGonagall looked over her square spectacles at him, but didn't say anything. "So, do you think it'll be alright? I mean, would it be okay if I go to Hogsmeade?" Professor McGonagall looked down and began shuffling papers on her desk. "I'm afraid not Potter," she said. "You heard what I said. No form, no visiting the village. That's the rule." "But, Professor, my aunt and uncle, you know, they're muggles. They don't really understand about Hogwarts rooms and stuff," Harry said, while Ron egged him to go on with vigorous nods. "You said I could go." "But I don't say so," said Professor McGonagall, standing up and piling her papers neatly in a drawer. "The form clearly states that the parent or guardian must give permission." She turned to look at him with an odd expression on her face. Was it pity? "I'm sorry, Potter, but that's my final word. You had better hurry or you'll be late for your next lesson. There was nothing to be done. Ron called Professor McGonagall a lot of names that greatly ignored Hermione. Yeah, that probably annoyed me too, honestly. Hermione assumed an all for the best expression that made Ron even angrier, and Harry had to endure everyone in the class talking wildly and happily about what they were going to do first once they got into Hogsmeade. Oh, this is me hugging Harry. I know what it's like to be left out of something, so yeah. There's always the feast, said Ron in an effort to cheer Harry up. You know, the Halloween feast in the evening. Yeah, said Harry gloomily. Right. The Halloween feast was always good, but it would taste a lot better if he was coming to it after a day in Hogsmeade with everyone else. Nothing anyone said to make him feel any better about being left behind. Dean Thomas, who was good with the quill, had offered to forge Uncle Vernon's signature on the form, but as Harry had already told Professor McGonagall that he hadn't had it signed, that was no good. Ron half-heartedly suggested the invisibility cloak. Slight foreshadowing, maybe? But Hermione stamped on that one, reminding Ron that Dumbledore had told them about the Dementors being able to see through them. Percy had what were possibly the least helpful words of comfort. They make a fuss about Hogsmeade, but I assure you, Harry, it's not all what it's cracked up to be, he said seriously. All right, the sweet shop's rather good. Yes, Honeydukes is delicious. And Zonko's shop's frankly dangerous. And yes, the Shrieking Shacks always worth a visit. Foreshadowing. But really, Harry, apart from that, you're not missing anything. On Halloween morning, Harry woke with the rest and went down to breakfast feeling thoroughly depressed, though doing his best act normally. Bring you lots of sweets back from Honeydukes, said Hermione, looking desperately sorry for him. Yeah, loads, said Ron. He and Hermione had finally forgotten their squabble about Crookshanks in the face of Harry's disappointment. Well, that's good that they're able to patch up a little bit. Don't worry about me, said Harry in what he hoped was an offhand voice. I'll see you at the feast. Have a good time. He accompanied them to the entrance hall where Filch, the caretaker, was standing inside the front doors, checking off names against the long list, peering suspiciously into every face, and making sure that no one was sneaking out who shouldn't be going. Same here, Potter, shouted Malfoy, who was standing in line with Crabbe and Goyle. Scared of passing the Dementors. Harry ignored him and made his solitary way up the marble staircase through the deserted corridors back to Gryffindor Tower. Password? Said the fat lady, jerking out of the doze. Fortuna Major, said Harry wistfully. That is not an easy word to say. The portraits were open, and he climbed through the hole into the common room. It was full of chattering first and second years, and a few older students who had obviously visited Hogsmeade so often the novelty had worn off. Harry! Harry! Hi, Harry! It was called briefly. A second year who was deeply in awe of Harry and never missed an opportunity to speak to him. Aren't you going to Hogsmeade, Harry? Why not? Hey! Colin looked eagerly round at his friends. You can come and sit with us if you'd like, Harry. No thanks, Colin, said Harry, who wasn't in the mood to have a lot of people staring avidly at the scar on his forehead. Okay. I like that Niddle by Y, but I also know the underlying meaning. Harry just doesn't want to be reminded about Hogsmeade, and therefore he's wanting to have some, I guess, unhealthy isolation, if that's what you want to call it. really not ideal in situations like this. You should really have some friends to cheer you up when you're feeling low, even though it's a little hard sometimes. So yeah, negative self-isolation is really not ideal. And even if it's just one person to talk to, that still makes a difference. I speak from experience. I'm sure many of you who are listening who have been on the receiving end of my ranting know what I mean. But yeah, it's really helpful just to have someone there to listen and just be there for you when you need them. I personally would love to be here for Harry, because I think he would learn a lot from me. What about you guys? I've got to go to the library to get some work done. After that, he had no choice but to turn right around and head back out of the portrait hole again. What was the point of waking me up? Said the fat lady grumpily after him as he walked away. Harry wandered dispiritedly toward the library, but halfway there he changed his mind. He didn't feel like working. He turned around and came face to face with Filch, who had obviously just seen off the last of the Hogsmeade visitors. "What are you doing?" snarled Filch suspiciously. "Nothing," said Harry truthfully. "Nothing," spat Filch, his jowls quivering unpleasantly. "A likely story. Snaking around on your own. Why aren't you in Hogsmeade buying stink pellets and belch powder?" I don't even want to know. "And whizzing worms." I still don't want to know. "Like the rest of your nasty little friends," Harry shrugged. "Well, get back to your common room where you belong," snapped Filch. He stood glaring until Harry had passed out of sight. But Harry didn't go back to the common room. He climbed the staircase, thinking vaguely of visiting the Hourway to see Hedwig, and was walking along another corridor from when a voice from inside one of the rooms said, "Harry?" Harry doubled back to see who had spoken and met Professor Lupin looking around his office door. "What are you doing?" said Lupin, though in a very different voice from Filch. "Where are Ron and Hermione?" "Hogsmeade," said Harry in a would-be casual voice. "Ah," said Lupin. He considered Harry for a moment. "Why don't you come in? I've just taken delivery of a Grindido for our next lesson." "What?" said Harry. He followed Lupin into his office. In the corner stood a large tank of water. A sickly green creature with sharp metal horns had its face pressed against the glass, pulling faces and flexing its long, spindly fingers. "What a demon," said Lupin, surveying the Grindylow thoughtfully. "We should have much difficulty with him, not after the kappas. The trick is to break his grip. You notice the abnormally long fingers? Strong, but very brittle." So in other words, with my strong grip, I would break the fingers in an instant. Nice. The Grindylow bared its green teeth and then hurried itself in a tangle of weeds in the corner. "Cup of tea?" Lupin said, looking around for his kettle. "I was just thinking of making one." "Yes! I'll take some tea, Lupin. Please." "All right," said Harry awkwardly. Lupin tapped the kettle with his wand and a blast of steam issued suddenly from the spout. "Sit down," said Lupin, taking the lid off the dusty tin. "I've only got tea bags, I'm afraid." "That wouldn't be a problem with me. I've experience with tea bags." "But I dare say you've had enough tea leaves." Harry looked at him. Lupin's eyes were twinkling. "How did you know about that?" Harry asked. "Professor McGonagall told me," said Lupin, passing Harry a chipped mug of tea. "You're not worried, are you?" "No," thought, said Harry. He thought of for a moment of telling Lupin about the dog he'd seen in Magnolia Crescent, but decided not to. He didn't want to think Lupin he was a coward. Especially since Lupin already seemed to think he couldn't cope with a father. Something of Harry's thoughts seemed to have shown his face because Lupin said, "Anything worrying you, Harry?" "No," Harry lied. He drank a bit of tea and watched the grinning wolf brandishing a fist at him. "Yes," he said, suddenly putting his tea down on Lupin's desk. "You know that day we fought the Boggart?" "Yes," said Lupin slowly. "Why didn't you let me fight it?" said Harry roughly. Lupin raised his eyebrows. "That's the best I can do." "I would have thought that was obvious, Harry," he said, sounding surprised. Harry, who had expected Lupin to deny he'd done such thing, was taken aback. "Why?" he said again. "Well," said Lupin, frowning slightly, "I assumed that if the Boggart faced you, it would assume the shape of Lord Voldemort." That actually is the Boggart of a good bit of Harry Potter characters. It would take a while for me to list them all in this commentary, so I'll have to get back to you guys on that. Harry stared. Not only was this the last answer he expected, but Lupin had said Voldemort's name. The only person Harry had ever heard this name aloud, apart from himself. And us readers, of course, if we're reading out loud. But he doesn't know that. Was Professor Dumbledore. "Clearly I was wrong," said Lupin, still frowning at Harry. "But I didn't think it was a good idea for Lord Voldemort to materialize in this bathroom. I imagined that people would panic." "I did think of Voldemort first," said Harry honestly. "But then I remembered those Dementors." "I see," said Lupin blankly. "Well, I'm impressed." He smiled slightly at the look of surprise on Harry's face. "That's just that what you fear most of all is fear. Very wise, Harry." Funny, I seem to recall a similar quote from Franklin Delano Roosevelt that said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." Or something like that. Please let me know if I'm correct if you guys are historians. I'm not much of a historian. Harry didn't know what to say to that, so he drank some more tea. "Yeah, that would be a me move." I'm not gonna lie, that would be a me move. "So you've been thinking that I didn't believe you're capable of fighting the Boggart?" said Lupin shrewdly. "Well, yeah," said Harry. He was suddenly feeling a lot happier. "Professor Lupin, you know the Dementors." He was interrupted by a knock on the door. "Come in," called Lupin. The door opened, and in came Snape. He was carrying a goblet which was smoking vainly and stopped at the sight of Harry. His black eyes narrowed. "Ah, Severus," said Lupin, smiling. "Thanks very much. Could you leave it here on the desk for me?" Snape set down the smoking goblet, his eyes wandering between Harry and Lupin. "I was just showing Harry my Grindylow," said Lupin pleasantly, pointing at the tape. "Fascinating," said Snape without looking at it. Yeah, I hate it when people play this. I really do. Whenever I want to show them something, I get in a little hurt that they don't look at it right away. So yeah, I always hate it when people do that. "You should drink that directly, Lupin." Yes, I will," said Lupin. "I made an entire cauldron full," Snape continued, "if you need any more. I should probably take some again tomorrow. Thanks very much, Severus." "Not at all," said Snape, but there was a look in his eye Harry didn't like. He backed out of the room, unsmiling and watchful. Harry looked curiously at the goblet. Lupin smiled. Professor Snape has very kindly concocted a potion for me, he said. I have never been much of a potion brewer, and this one is particularly complex. He picked up the goblet and sipped it. Pretty sugar makes it useless. Ugh. I can't imagine. Ugh, I don't want to spoil. Oh, I really don't want to spoil it, but okay. Since I really don't want to spoil it, it's a shame that sugar makes that potion useless. Because that would be a mean move, adding sugar to the potion. If I were in Lupin's shoes, so to speak. He added, taking a sip and shuddering. Yeah, definitely. Why? Harry began. Lupin looked at him and answered the unfinished question. I've been feeling a bit off color, he said. This potion is the only thing that helps. I am very lucky to be working alongside Professor Snape. There aren't many wizards who are up to making it. I'd be up to making it, and I'm a witch! Ha ha ha! Well, okay. Not that kind of wicked witch, but you get the idea, given the context of Harry Potter, don't you? Professor Lupin took another sip, and Harry had a crazy urge to knock the goblet out of his hands. Professor Snape's very interested in dark arts, he blurted out. Really? Said Lupin, looking only mildly interested as he took another gulp of potion. Some people reckon, Harry hesitated, then plunged recklessly on. Some people reckon he'd do anything to get the defense against the dark arts job. Lupin drained the goblet and pulled a face. Disgusting, he said. Well, Harry, I'd better get back to work. I'll see you at the feast later. The empty goblet was still smoking. There you go, Ron. Oops. There you go, said Ron. We've got as much as we could carry. A shower of brilliantly colored sweets fell into Harry's lap. It was dusk, and both Ron and Hermione had just turned up in the common room, pink-faced from the cold wind and looking as though they had the time of their lives. Thanks, said Harry, picking up a packet of tiny black pepper imps. What's Hogsmeade like? Where did you go? By the sound of it everywhere. Dervish bangs, the wizarding equipment shop, Zonka's joke shop, into the 3 broomsticks for foaming mugs of hot butter beer. Okay, while at Universal, I did not have the hot butter beer. I did have the cold butter beer, though, and it was delicious. I had 6 whole cups and a tiny bit of a 7. That's how addictive and delicious it is. If you ever go to Universal at some point, definitely try the butterbeer. You will not regret it. And many places besides. The post office, Harry. About 200 hours all sitting on shelves, all color-coded depending on how fast you want your letter to get there. That would be useful in real life. Like, dude, why do we have these trucks when we can just do color-coded envelopes to owls and they can just do it like zoom or zoom or zoom. Depending. I don't know about you, but I definitely would like some with a zoom to it. I am making this chapter far too much fun. I apologize. Honeydew has got a new kind of fudge. They were giving out free samples. That's a bit. Look. We think we saw an ogre on a stick. We get all sorts at the 3 broomsticks. Wish we could have brought you some butterbeer. Really warms you up. What did you do? Said Hermione, looking anxious. Did you get any work done? No, said Harry. Lupin made me a cup of tea in his office, and then Snape come in. He told them all about the goblet. Ron's mouth fell open. Lupin drank it! He gasped. Is he mad? Hermione checked her watch. We'd better go down, you know. The feast will be starting in 5 minutes. They hurried through the portrait hole and into the crowd, still discussing Snape. But if he, Hermione dropped her voice, glancing nervously around. If he was trying to poison Lupin, maybe he wouldn't have done it in front of Harry. Yeah, maybe, said Ron as they reached the entrance hall and crossed into the great hall. It had been decorated with hundreds and hundreds of candle-filled pumpkins, a cloud of fluttering live bats, and many flaming orange streamers which were swimming lazily across the stormy ceiling like brilliant water snakes. The food was delicious. Even Hermione and Ron, who were full to bursting with honeydew sweets. I mean, that'd be a little bit of a me move too, not gonna lie. But at the same time, I definitely would save someone for the feast. Managed second helpings of everything. Harry kept glancing at the staff table. Professor Lupin looked cheerful, and as well as he ever did, he was talking animatedly to tiny little Professor Flitwick, the charms teacher. Harry moved his eyes along the table to the place where Snape sat. Was he imagining it, or were Snape's eyes flickering toward Lupin more often than was natural? The feast finished with an entertainment provided by the Hogwarts ghost. They popped out of the walls and tables to do a bit of formation gliding. Nearly ahead was Nick, the Gryffindor ghost, had great success with the reenactment of his own botched beheading. Okay. It had been such a pleasant evening that Harry's good mood couldn't even be spoiled by Malfoy, who shouted through the crowd as they all left the hall, "The Dementors send their love, Potter!" Harry, Ron, and Hermione followed the rest of the Gryffindors along the usual path to Gryffindor Tower, but when they reached the corridor that ended with the portrait of the Fat Lady, they found it jammed with students. "Why isn't anyone going in?" said Ron curiously. Harry peered over the heads in front of it. The portrait seemed to be closed. "Let me through, please," came Percy's voice, and he came bustling importantly through the crowd. "What's the hold up here? You can't have forgotten all the password. Excuse me, I'm head boy." Then a silence fell over the crowd from the front verse so that a chill seemed to spread down the corridor. They heard Percy say in a suddenly sharp voice, "Somebody get Professor Dumbledore! Quick!" People's heads turned. Those at the back were standing on tiptoe. "What's going on?" said Ginny, who had just arrived. A moment later, Professor Dumbledore was there, sweeping toward the portrait. The Gryffindor squeezed together to let him through, and Harry, Ron, and Hermione moved closer to see what the trouble was. "Oh my!" Hermione grabbed Harry's arm. The Fat Lady had vanished from her portrait, which had been slashed so viciously that strips of canvas littered the floor. Great chunks of it had been torn away completely. Dumbledore took one quick look at the ruined painting and turned his eyes somber to see Professors McGonagall, Lupin, and Snape hurrying toward him. "We need to find her," said Dumbledore. "Professor McGonagall, please go tell Mr. Filch at once and tell him to search every painting in the castle for the Fat Lady." "You'll be lucky," said a cackling voice. It was Peeves the Poltergeist, bobbing over the crowd and looking delighted as he always did at the sight of wreckage or worry. "What do you mean, Peeves?" said Dumbledore calmly, and Peeves' grin faded a little. He didn't dare taunt Dumbledore. Instead, he adopted an oily voice that was no better than his cackle. "Ashamed, your headship, sir! Doesn't want to be seen. She's a horrible mess. Saw her running through the landscape up on the 4th floor, sir, dodging between the trees, crying something dreadful," he said happily. "Poor thing," he added unconvincingly. "Did she say who did it?" said Dumbledore, crying. "Oh, yes, Professor Head," said Peeves with the air of one cradling large bombshell in his arms. He got very angry when she wouldn't let him in, you see." Peeves flipped over and grinned at Dumbledore from between his own legs. "Nasty tempers he's got, that Sirius Black." And that is the end of that chapter. Join me next week for Chapter 9, Grim Defeat. Woo! I think we're in for a good one next week. So, that said, goodbye, and imaginary caps off to you, my dear friend Alexa. May you have a marvelous birthday tomorrow, and a marvelous new chapter of your life to look forward to. Bye!